Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Chef Stu. Today we're going to be working on an Italian dish that I thought I would show to you guys. Something that you can incorporate any and all leftovers you might have in your fridge on a Friday night or a Sunday night after you've made a few meals for yourself at home. And what we're going to do is we're kind of going to glam up some old leftovers and make it into somewhat of a gourmet meal. So today we're working on a dish called a frittata. It's an egg-based dish. It's Italian of origin, and the word frittata actually comes from the word, it's loosely translated fried. So essentially it's like a fried egg omelet that you can sort of make into a pizza, and that's what we're going to do today. I know our last video was a pizza. This is a little bit different, a little bit more gourmet, a little bit high-end. So the first thing that I did was I kind of looked around my pantry just to see what odds and ends I had left over. Anything that you've already cooked that might be lying in the bottom of your crisper, half-used tomatoes, onions, anything at all. That's why this dish is beautiful. You can fit anything into this dish and it comes out beautifully. So for today's dish, I was able to find just a bunch of kind of older green onions here. They don't look super beautiful, but the whole point of this is we're going to transform them into something gorgeous. I've got half of a 5x6 tomato here that was used for some sandwiches. Got half a white onion, lovely white onion. Just 1 crown of broccoli here. We probably won't even use all this, but just a little leftover broccoli maybe from a dish you had earlier in the week. And then a couple of just hunks of cheddar cheese, just left over from being sliced for different sandwiches and stuff that were just kind of lying around in the fridge. You can use anything at all though. This just happens to be what I had left over. Now the key ingredients that you're going to have are some eggs. I've got about 12 eggs cracked and I've already whisked them up here just to save some time so that you didn't have to watch me crack 12 eggs. I've got a little bit of salt here and pepper here as well, salt and pepper. I've got a little bit of olive oil, about 1.5 ounces of olive oil. And then finally, some heavy cream here. This is 10% cream. You can use 18%. Fattier, heavier cream is better though for this dish as it absorbs into the egg and cooks it out nicer without burning, makes it nice and fluffy. So we're just gonna prepare some of the ingredients that we've got here, set them all up for ourselves, and then we'll go through the process of actually cooking the dish. So the first thing here, we're gonna go root to shoot right here is what we like to call it. A lot of people don't know that you can use the white end of the green onion here. You just cut off right at the end, that bit of hairs there, you're not gonna use those. So we'll just take those and set those aside. But then everything here, all the way from this white end is gonna be really, really delicious, flavorful, and usable. So we're just gonna go ahead and chop these right up. Chop these green onions right up. You can do it as fine as you want or as thick as you want, just depending on what your preference is. I like to have them kind of small though, so that they dissipate throughout the entire dish. So just got our onions there, clean your knife off, and we'll just place them into this nice insert here on the side. Those will be for later. Set that down. Wipe down here. So we've got our green onions set aside. Next thing we'll do is we'll just slice up this tomato real quick. 1, 2 slices that way, and then across the top, and we're just gonna give it a quick little chop here. So we've got little cubes. They would call this a dice, technically. Some nice little cubes. Slice that up. Grab another insert here, and we'll throw that in the insert as well. Now, you can make these shapes however you like for your presentation. I am just doing this the way that I know how, and you'll see it'll come out nicely even and everything consistent, and that's sort of how I like it. So with the onion here, with the white onion, you like to chop it in half, and you actually take that half and just cut a slit right in it again. And then once you've done that, you can make these little finger cuts right across here, just like so. Not many people know this little trick, so now you've kind of cut it in half, and you've slid it across the end. And then we're just gonna come across like this, chop, 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 just up and down, and you'll see it just grids that onion into beautiful little cubes. Might have a couple extra little pieces here you can just kind of hack up. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for expert level chefery here, especially on our leftovers. We just want it to look nice and be relatively consistent as far as the size of the cuts. And the reason we have that is just so that everything cooks the same time and isn't cooking faster or slower than anything else. So just wipe that down. So the next thing we'll do is just grab our broccoli here, hack off a bit of the stem. Definitely don't need that, set that aside. And then here I don't like to chop too fine because I actually like to see the little bits of florets, so I just take my fingers and just kind of rip these little pieces apart. So the little tiny florets, once we cook it into the egg pizza, they'll be visible and you'll be able to see that it's broccoli instead of just little nubs of green kind of kicking around there. You want your guests to see, or for yourself even, just to see that it is actually broccoli, just not green mush that's in there. So got that broccoli set aside there. Now comes the best part. Just gonna work this bacon here. I had a little bit of bacon left over from a breakfast that I cooked a couple days ago, and I thought this would be the perfect protein to go right into this frittata. Give it some saltiness, give it some smoky, delicious pork flavor. So we'll just hack that up, just like so. Again, just set that aside, put it into a pinch bowl or an insert or whatever you might have at home that you can just hold your ingredients separately. And then finally, the last thing we have is just, we've got those 2 chunks of cheese there. So I'm just gonna take those and kind of just bunch them up. Throw them right on our cheese grater here, just on the bigger grating side, and just kind of do my best to grate them into this bowl. Now the cheese, be a little cooler is obviously better if you can have it a bit refrigerated so that it's got some density to it, so you don't have to kind of shred it and it kind of melts as you go. But at the end of the day, to be completely honest with you, it's not going to matter too much. It's all getting mixed into this egg pizza, and then it's going to get melted anyways. So as long as you've kind of got it grated into smaller little pieces there, chunks, that should be perfect. All right. Right, so the next step, you'll have your eggs. Now, like I said, in order to save time, I've already cracked them, but we have our eggs here, 12 eggs cracked into this and already whisked up with the yolk and the whites. I'm going to take a nice dash of salt here, pinch that right in, 2 pinches, and then I'll do 1 really nice heavy pinch of pepper as well. Then we're gonna take some of our cheese, about half the amount of cheese you have, even a quarter if you don't have too much. You're gonna mix that right into the egg. Surprising, I know, but this is gonna add a lot of delicious flavor into our pizza later on. Then set aside whatever you have the rest of the cheese. We'll top the egg with that later on. Once that's finished, essentially all you wanna do is just take a quick whisk. Now you can see I've already done that, but we're gonna incorporate the cheese and the salt and pepper into there. All right, doesn't need to be whisked too hard, just make sure that you've got everything incorporated in there and you're good to go. And then the last thing we're gonna talk about real quick is we're gonna talk about our cast iron pan. Now, any pan will do as long as it's a full metal pan. What you're going to do is we're going to start cooking it on the stove top and have some heat applied from underneath the pan. Then once it starts to crisp up and get semi-cooked, par cooked, we're going to take the entire pan with the egg in it and we're going to put it right into the oven and have the pizza finish in the oven, just like so. Once that's done, we'll pull it out, let it cool, and then we'll be able to slice sections off so that everybody in your household, or you can have leftovers, can have a piece of that wonderful pizza. So the next step is off to the kitchen and let's get cooking. Okay guys, here we are in the kitchen. We're gonna explain the cooking process behind how we're gonna actually make this frittata. So again, I've got my eggs here mixed in with the cheese, a little bit of salt and pepper. The next thing I'm gonna do is add, like I said before, that heavy cream, add some fat content to it. We're just gonna whisk it right in. That's 3 full tablespoons of cream going in there. Just whisked in, not too heavily, just until it's all incorporated. All right, we're gonna set that aside, and the next step for this is come over here where we have our cast iron pan heating up. Got that on a medium-high heat, which is somewhere in the middle of the dial. We're going to add about just under an ounce of olive oil here, just to the pan. As I said before, this is a 1-pan cook, so everything we're going to do is going to be in this 1 pan. You don't have to move anything around, you don't need any other devices or anything else at all. Everything's gonna cook right in here. So we're just gonna wait for the oil to preheat a little bit, just until it gets a nice little shimmer. And you'll see that as you are cooking. You can close up, take a look right at the oil. You'll see when it gets that sweet spot where it's gonna start sauteing things perfectly. Now we're gonna start right away with our white onion here. Add that right to the pan. You should hear that sizzle right away. We'll cook that down a little bit. What we're trying to do here is incorporate the vegetables that take the longest first, followed by some of the quicker veg slightly after, so that everything cooks together at the same time. In this case, our onions and the broccoli will be the first things to go. So we'll get that in there, get it sauteing around for a few minutes. And just let that cook down nicely. Next step, take the broccoli, add that right in there as well. And we'll just saute this down. You're just looking for it to be a little bit soft. You don't need it to be fully cooked down, but just a little bit soft and wilted. The reason we're doing this is so that some of the liquids come out of the vegetables, so once we cook the egg in there, it's not too watery. This is important to kind of cook off and reduce some of that water content from the veg so that our egg isn't super runny when it's finished today. All right, just cooking that down, mixing it around. Now remember, this pan's super hot, so we're never gonna want to touch this with our bare hands. We're always gonna use an oven mitt or some sort of towel. I always have a handy towel on hand to make sure that when we grab anything, we're not hurting ourselves. All right, so we've got that broccoli sweated down a little bit there. It's looking beautiful. Nice green color popping out. Next step, we'll add our bacon. Who doesn't love some bacon and eggs together, right? Best combo ever. Best combo of all time. So we got the bacon in there sauteing around, looks good. Final ingredient we're gonna add right now is some tomato as well. We're adding the tomato at the end because there's some liquid. It's gonna cool down the pan a little bit, and they're very soft already. We're not gonna wanna overcook them too much. So we filled up the pan pretty nice here, and I wish again you guys could smell what I'm smelling. This is absolutely delicious here as we're cooking all this vegetable down. This is a great time right now. Grab yourself a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and just do a little bit of seasoning of all these vegetables we have in there. Now earlier we seasoned the egg obviously because you want the egg mixture to be tasty, but you've got to season your vegetables too. So one thing we learn is that season every step of the way when you're cooking. So we've got some nice salt and pepper in there. Everything's cooking down beautifully in here. Looking good. So what we'll want to do is we'll just want to kind of press everything, spread it around evenly, make sure that we've got a nice even base there. And this is where the magic is about to happen, guys. We take that delicious egg mixture that we made, and we're going to add it directly to the pan, right in. All right. Beautiful. Now, of course, you don't want to go too much and overfill your pan. Just take it right up to the limit where you see there. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of green onion. I don't like to cook the green onion in this one. I kind of like that fresh spring onion taste, so I'm just going to do a little, just a pinch here and there, just around the frittata. That's it. Nice and easy. We'll use the rest for garnish later on. So, as our frittata cooks here, doesn't take very long, about 1.5 to 2 minutes. What we're looking for is as the edges start to crisp up around the edge of the pan, that's our signifier to let us know, okay, the underside is getting slightly cooked, then we're gonna move it to the oven. Now, the oven we're going to use is just a regular conventional oven, same oven you would have at home, and we're gonna set the temperature to 425 degrees, and we're gonna cook this bad boy anywhere from 7 to 14 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just take my spatula. Any spatula will do. Metal is preferred though, especially if you're working with cast iron. You don't want to melt your silicone. And we're just going to check the edge here. Just put your spatula in. Take a look. Yep, it's firming up a little bit on the sides. That's looking good. And you can definitely see on this side it's getting very firm. That one's crisp up and ready to go. So our next step, we're going to turn off the heat here. Make sure the flame's off. We're going to take our towel and be very, very careful when we grab this pan. By the handle, give it a good firm grip. You'll see it's still a little bit liquidy as we place it, the whole pan, into the oven. Now we'll let that close, as I said, 425, and we'll come back in 7 minutes and take a look and see how it is. Okay, so we're back. It's been 10 exact minutes. We're gonna check our frittata now in the oven. So here we go. Make sure you got your cloth, make sure it's dry. Pull out the oven here, grab our frittata. Woo! Look at that gorgeous piece of work. So like I said, it's essentially an egg pizza. We've cooked it in this one pan. Everything's nicely melted, bubbling, perfectly cooked, and the edges are nice and brown and crispy. So the next step here is we're gonna pull it out of the oven, being careful, very careful. Oh, I better be careful. And then we're gonna just drop it here and just allow it to cool for a few minutes before we slice and then portion it up for our hungry friends. All right, well, here we are back in the studio. We've got our finished frittata here in our cast iron pan, as you can see, fully cooked all the way through and now ready to be served. So the way I like to do this is actually cut it directly in the pan. No need to flip it or pull it out or anything. This is super, super easy. Just take your chef knife or boning knife, whatever knife you might have at home, standard kitchen knife. Just go right through the middle of that bad boy. Just kind of giving it a few little taps up and down like so, right to the edge. Let's do that again, going crosswise this time, trying to be as even as we possibly can. That way everybody gets an equal share of the pie, so to speak. Then we'll go one more time diagonally through the middle. Just kind of tapping it down as we go. And then finally, one more time to get ourselves 8 glorious slices of egg frittata. There we go, all cut. Now at home you might have some sort of spatula. Right here I've got like a little long burger flipper with an offset so we can dig in there and get our pieces. So we're just gonna do that now. Try and start right at the edge. And just kind of scoop underneath. You bring up gorgeous piece of frittata there. And then let's grab another piece just so we can see the cross section on the inside of this guy. Oh, might need to slice that just a little bit more, as you can see, just to cut the edges. There we are. All right, let's get up and underneath that guy. Oh boy, look at that. Doesn't that just look delicious? Let's put another one on there. Beautiful. And like I said, you can cut this in any shape you like. So if you're interested in putting these in between sandwich slices for bread, you can eat them cold for breakfast. Honestly, this dish goes a long way in doing anything you want to do. And as I said again, you can use any leftovers at all to throw in this guy to make it an absolutely scrumptious gourmet leftover meal and really impress your friends, your flatmates, your roommates, or your study companions with a wonderful, very cheap, easy one-pan meal made out of leftovers. So that's it, folks. That's your frittata. Hope you enjoy it, and tune in next time where we'll be making some other delicious gourmet recipe here at 1280.